Welcome to the episode number 4 of The Boom Show here. Today, my CEO guest is Charlie Mack from the island of Ireland, and I'm looking forward to talking with him very much. Thank you all for being here. It's a great pleasure to have a live audience in this live stream. Before we get started, I would like to thank Gustavo again, Gustavo Salami, the producer of this show, CEO of Kuble, the company behind this live streaming channel, pocket.ch. I consider pocket.ch to be the most interesting corporate media project right now, at least here in Switzerland. And if you're interested in creating and publishing effective content as a company, then maybe, just maybe, you should be talking with Gustavo about that. In the Boom Show itself, I'm deconstructing the business growth stories of certain companies with their CEOs, and that takes me right back to my guest of the day, Charlie Mack from the island of Ireland. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be on the Boom Show.
We've done the Boom Show before, and we had a technical problem, which is why we do a retake. Thank you very much, Charlie, for agreeing on doing that. I know it takes time out of your day, and I'm really happy that we can do it again. It's just so much better than using the material that we had.
It's a pleasure to be invited back, and these things happen, and I'm just delighted to be speaking to your audience about the extern growth story. So thank you for inviting me back.
You just mentioned the extern growth story. Extern is the name of your business, and we're diving into the growth story right now with 3 little numbers. Well, actually not so little, not so small, that tell part of the story pretty exactly. In the 6 years that you have been with Extern, this business grew from 170 to 600 employees. I calculated, I couldn't do it in my head, so I needed a calculator. It's plus 250%. And you help 22,000 people today. That started with 4,000 people that you, as Extern, were helping back 6 years ago. That's a plus of 450%. And you took the revenue from, actually, I don't even remember. Was it from 6 to 27?
Correct, Dave, yes.
So
from 6 million.
6 million pounds sterling to 27 million pounds sterling.
Correct, that's it, in a nutshell.
Congrats on these numbers. I mean, that's not just some growth, that almost feels like insane growth. What does it feel like to you?
Well, it has been responding to need. So Extern is the largest social justice charity on the island of Ireland, which covers Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, and then the Republic of Ireland. So in a sense, what we have done is responded to need. And in one sense, the fact that there is so much social need out there is disappointing for our society. But we see ourselves as a non-profit responsive to the needs of our customers. And that's at the heart of our growth story.
So you said non-profit, you said charity, but you still call it a business, which I like a lot. Why do you call it a business?
Well, I think it's important that any charity has a business approach, because quite often non-profits go for they put that up front and non-profit and put their customers first, which of course is exactly what we should do. However, if we don't look after our finances, if we don't look after our product or our service, if we don't look after the processes that we have internally, and lastly but not leastly, if we don't look after our people who deliver the frontline services, then we have nothing to give. So I think it's important that there's a mixture of business areas and business growth areas that you address. It's not just all about customer. It has to be a balanced approach.
Let's talk about the customer first anyway. From 4,000 people that you serve to 22,000 people that you serve today in only 6 years. And you said you responded to need. That means that there were 18,000 less 6 years ago, or they were not being served.
That's correct. So in terms of responding to need, so what does Extern do? I've mentioned social justice. Now that could cover lots of things. So let me try and describe that succinctly for you. So Extern started as a charity responding to criminal justice. So it started in 1978 as a charity looking to rehabilitate offenders, so people coming out of the two prisons in Northern Ireland. Since then, and when I joined 6 years ago, I asked the question, why do people offend? And that led us into looking at the reasons why people end up in prison. So that then took us to homelessness, to addictions, to young people's trauma, to mental health issues, to minority communities, like in Ireland, the travelling community is a minority community that's affected by offending and leads people into crime, and also refugees. So essentially what I'm saying is we moved the model upstream. So we looked at the root causes for why people offend, and that has been at the heart of the growth, responding to asking the question why. I think in terms of business growth, that's an essential question to ask. What is it that your customers need? Why do they, in a non-profit sense, why did we just start looking at people offending? That was very far down the line. I took the approach of asking why, and my team responded to delivering services which were what I would describe more upstream at the root causes.
Charlie, please give us an example. So there were criminal offenders. They were incarcerated.
Absolutely.
And then they needed some help with some of the things. When you say you took it upstream and you went to the root causes, and that helped you to expand the business of Extern, what is a good example, or 2 or 3 examples of other services that are needed in our societies and in yours, in that case, that come out of this approach of going upstream?
Okay, so let me give you an example of one of our 22,000 service users. So I'm thinking of a young man who for 15 years was misusing substances, so drug and alcohol. He was even getting into gambling addiction. And as a result of that, he became homeless. And as a result of that, he then started to steal and commit crimes in order to survive. Now, he came to Extern, and had Extern not been there, he would have ended up in prison. Because we had a service which was offering people support at a homeless level, at an addictions level, we were able to prevent him being incarcerated. We intervened because he came to us, he made the choice, he was aware that we were there, and our team were able to respond to him. Now that saved the state or the government at 70% of what they would have spent on incarcerating that person, not to mention the mental health trauma that he would have encountered had he gone to prison. So there's a concrete example of intervening, which is a benefit for the individual himself, is a benefit to government and state, which is one of the reasons one of our main commissioners is government. And so we were able to convince government that this is a better idea, to intervene earlier, to move the model upstream, as I would describe it, but it's essentially earlier intervention. Then we were able to respond to him.
In short, the business case that you have sold to your customers, which mainly are governmental organizations, is that they can save money and save a lot of hassle and lots of problems and problems in society as well, if they kind of go in earlier and finance that. If they finance your work, going in earlier in a situation and solving problems before they even arise.
It's a win-win. You've got it, Dave. It's a win-win. It's a win for government. It's a win for the individuals, the 22,000 people that we are able to essentially rescue and able to empower them to change their life. We don't have a magic wand, but what we can do is our staff are passionate and compassionate about intervening to empower people to change their lives. And when we intervene earlier, then it's better for society. It's better for the people involved. The earliest that we can get into helping people, then the better it is, win-win, as I say.
Okay, very cool. When I discuss business growth with CEOs, usually there's kind of three main areas that we discuss. One is the product, one is the people, and then there is sales and marketing, and that includes communication. I mean, the whole holistic thing that communication is.
Sure.
How important is your product for your business growth story?
Well, I would prefer to use the word, I mean, in this sense, it's service more so than product, because essentially we're providing services, but it's the same from a business point of view. So yes, being the charity of the second chance, which is how I would describe Extern, it's giving people a second chance. So relentlessly looking and innovating to respond to need. So I think, as I've mentioned, the flexibility, the agility of Extern and our wonderful, compassionate staff that bring to me solutions of what about, could we do? Because they've come across a service user that has differing needs. So recently, for example, within the last year, we've added to our portfolio of service gambling addictions. So previously we didn't. Now that's a thing. It's a thing in Ireland. I don't know whether it's a thing in Europe or in Switzerland, but it's a major thing that has led people to waste all their money and actually lose their job or become homeless because they've actually got drawn into this as an addictive cycle. So my point is that service is crucial, but it is on the basis of the agility and flexibility of our business model to be able to respond to changing needs. And that comes back.
Let's dig a little deeper here, Charlie.
Sure.
I would really be interested in understanding what happened next when this person came to you. So that person was one of the 600 employees of Extern. This person came to you or the team, I don't know who exactly was involved, and said, we should go into that new segment. What happened next?
Okay, that's a brilliant question. So it's hooked into, I can't answer that question without going to the heart of the organization, which are our values, because one of our values is to be enterprising. And within Extern, we have an enterprise fund, which is a kickstart fund that we've put aside, that the board and I have put aside as chief executive, to say, if anyone in the organization has a good idea, you can apply for a fund worth 50,000 UK sterling to implement a good idea, to give it a shot, to give it a go. Now it has to meet certain criteria. It has to meet, our values. It has to be sustainable. It has to be something that could turn into a viable and sustainable service long term. But at the heart of what we do is giving our staff the opportunity to come up with new ideas. So that particular example that we've mentioned came through the Enterprise Fund. It was considered by my strategic leadership team, so my directors, and then the board looked at the proposal and we said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And it met the threshold. And as a result, we've ended up actually in this particular instance of taking over another charity, which was called Problem Gambling Ireland, which was the largest charity for gambling addiction services in the Republic of Ireland. And that's where that ended up actually within a short period of time, actually within 1 year, we merged into the Extern group, the charity called Problem Gambling, and it's become an integral part of our service delivery model now.
That's a brilliant example. Charlie, I wonder whether you would have another 10 of these. We don't need them here, but is that the only one? Is that like the model thing, or would there be plenty of other examples that you could tell us?
Oh, plenty of other. I mean, I think particularly of another one where we had a street addictions service that on a Friday afternoon, my staff know when to get me. It's a Friday afternoon, and they know I'm going to be most amenable to whatever they propose. And I remember a series of initial conversations that I had with my team who look after addictions, and one of them was a needle addiction service. They said that we need to go out on the streets instead of expecting customers to come to us, to come into our drop-in centre. Why don't we? Here's an idea, they said to me. Why don't we go to them? Why don't we walk the streets of Belfast and Dublin and see where people are in the alleyways, in the dark places of any city, and we go to them? What would be wrong with that? So again, there was another example which ended up leading, the short version of that is it's now government funded. It's a street addiction service that has now been added into our portfolio of services responding to need.
But I can tell you from a business perspective, what could be wrong with that? With going out, walking the streets, finding people in the alleyways, it's a lot more effort.
Yeah, well, okay. But do you know what? I think at the heart of our business is that we are compassionate, we care about people. And I think it's a business principle. Do you really expect, do you set up business and you say a nice shiny shop front and you say, come to us, come to us? What's wrong with us as a business going to where people are, meeting people at the point of their need? Sure, it might require a more flexible approach. It doesn't add any cost. It just means instead of a staff member sitting in an office or a shop front.
Can I ask you about that?
Sure.
How does it not add costs? If you had, for instance, 5 people sitting in a drop-in waiting for clients, or the alternative to that would be that those 5 people walk the streets, but you would still need people back at the drop-in, right?
Yeah, so it's a mixture. So it's a blend. It's not that all 5 people go out. So it's one person who goes out and identifies where the people are. And actually the return from that one person going out and walking the streets, if I can put it that way, is a 5-fold return on people who come back, who would come through our front door. So it's both.
It was worth the effort.
Absolutely worth the effort, because people deserve a second chance, and that's what's at the heart of our charity and our business.
Great. You've mentioned your people quite a bit already, and I would like to ask about the people. Before we do, Gustavo, do we have questions from the audience? No, so I would like to encourage you in the audience, if you have questions for Charlie or want to also tell us about your experience with business growth, please do so in the chat. This is a live stream, and as long as we're live, you can do that and ask your own question. We appreciate it. So Charlie, back to the people. You've mentioned them quite a bit already. Your people seem to be, as you said, enterprising, and they have ideas. They want to develop things and develop the organization and not just sit there and wait until things happen or are dictated from the leadership team. So what kind of people are these? 600? That's a lot of people. What kind of people are these?
Yeah, well, any organization, any business is only ever as good as the people who work for it. So I know that my team are excellent, that we are value driven. So I've mentioned one of our values earlier. So whenever
enterprising, you said.
Yes, enterprising, well remembered. So we have our core values, which are leading, enterprising, ambitious, professional, and working together. So we recruit on the basis of people who live those values, who get those values. And when a new staff member comes into Extern, as CEO, I believe it's crucially important that I get to meet them. So we have a series of induction programs which lasts. So if a new member of staff comes into Extern, we have a 4-week induction period, and right at the beginning of that is a discussion with me and the new staff, which is usually a group. We usually group them together and ask them about what's important for them in their life, and then we have a conversation and a discussion about the values and the culture of Extern. And
what is important to most of them? You've heard so many of them, like 500, 400 people then, or maybe even a little more. What is important to most of these people? Is there one thing, one top priority?
There's a couple of things. I mean, I think first and foremost they need to be compassionate. So to work in the voluntary sector or to work for a charity, you need to care about people. So you need
You
to have
just
an
mentioned
attitude.
voluntary. These people are being paid, right?
Oh yes, sorry,
Okay.
yes, they are being paid, but so we call the charitable sector also the voluntary sector, but it,
Okay,
it,
I
it
didn't
does
know
mean,
that.
I mean, we do have volunteers who work for us who aren't paid, but the 600 odd staff that we have are all paid. So of course, and you've just led me to mention one of the points. We pay them well. We pay them well in comparison to other charities in Ireland. We also train them well. So the reputation that Extern has in the social care field in Ireland is top class. So some of your listeners may have heard of the charity called Bernardo's as a children's charity. We are now even larger than Bernardo's in Ireland because staff have come to us from other charities because they like the training that we provide. We provide government training. So any new social worker that is becoming a trained, qualified social worker, we have a contract with government which allows them to use their placement year in Extern. So that enables us to have a very attractive, young, upwardly mobile, energetic, ambitious staff team who come to us because they know a lot of them have been on placement with us, and then they've understood what our culture is, and then they really, really want to work for us. So having a compassionate staff, having a professional reputation across the sector in Ireland is important. And what's crucially important for me is that they continuously improve. We have a culture of continuous learning because I believe, and my team believe, that empowering people to be the best they can be is makes business sense.
How do
Why
you
wouldn't you
learn
want
for
people?
yourself, Charlie?
Brilliant question. So my team and I, once a month, have an input from a professional company in Ireland to help us develop ourselves to be what I would describe as a high performing team. So we look at how we've performed over the past month, what we can do together to improve the way we work together for the benefit of our service users or our customers. So regularly, I believe in personal development, I believe in team development, and that's not just for my team; it's right across the organisation. That we remain because if you leave yourself even for 6 months, you're missing out on perhaps best practice or new learning. We have within us so much power and so much energy that is untapped and potential that is untapped. So we want all of our staff to be the best, to be empowered to be the best that they can be. And that includes me and my senior team.
And could you give me an example of what that meant, what you've learned as a team recently, as a leadership team?
Yes, I think we've learned more about the power of working together, which is one of our values, because quite often when you have a team of directors who one's looking after finance, one's looking after the HR side, one's looking after services, and one's looking after business development, it can be it can be a little bit, people thinking in silos, if you know what I mean. So looking at their own business. So how we've moved forward in the past 3 to 6 months is penny dropping or euro or cent dropping that we are better if we look across the business rather than in silos. And I don't believe it's ever a question that you can say we've achieved this. It's always a journey. It's always we're human beings. We're becoming, and we are better together than we are singly. So that's a constant learning, and I think that's something that we've learned even more so over the past 3 to 6 months.
Charlie, you mentioned the culture and that everybody who joins Extern needs to kind of match with that culture. Not kind of, I think it just has to be a match or it doesn't work. But when you started, there were already 170 people there. How many of those stayed with Extern after you started to work at Extern?
I would say about 85%. there were a few people who, because when I came in and when I was appointed in 2013, so it's actually coming up to 7 years now. Gosh, doesn't time fly? The board who appointed me were very clear that actually the charity needed to approach its work as a business. Now, some of the staff were uncomfortable with that, but and then they chose to leave.
So would it be correct to say that 20 to 25 people left?
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, I think it's a good sign within in a business if there are people who don't get the culture and what we're seeking to achieve. It's better for them. It's better for the organization if they do decide and they come to that conclusion themselves, that it's maybe not for them. And that does happen. And that's what sets us apart as Extern, because not every charity, not every non-profit sees themselves as a business. We do.
Yeah. So you come in as the new CEO. You send out an email or a memo of some kind to all the people saying these are our 5 new values: leading, enterprising, ambitious. I don't remember the other 2 from the top of my head. And then you sat back in your office, started to do your office work, and everything went differently out there in the world. Is that how it happened?
No, and I think I know that you would know me well enough, Dave, to know that that's absolutely not what happened. So day one, I went out to meet staff in Northern Ireland. Day 2, I went to meet the team in Dublin. So it is.
So how many of the people could you meet in the first 2 days? How many of the 170?
I met with all of the head office staff on day 1. So there was about maybe 20 people, and in Dublin there was about 10 people. And so I didn't meet everyone because the services are geographically dispersed across the island. In fact, we now have 40 sites across 27 counties, so it's hugely diverse. But obviously at that time it wasn't. So my approach was not by absolutely not sitting at a desk with my fingers over my I was going to say typewriter, but that dates me a little bit. My computer, yeah. I went to see, I talked, I listened, and the values were not created from top down. They were created from bottom up. So we had a discussion, and I went out to see and meet teams. So day 1 and 2 was meeting small groups of people, but I went out and discussed and did what I call road shows. So myself and my team went around the sites and listened to and grouped the staff together in larger groups, because it made sense that they came into groups, and we discussed what was important, and we came up together with our set of values.
Charlie, when you say me and my team went on a roadshow, how many of you were there traveling?
So there was myself and my 4 directors, but we didn't for efficiency reasons, we didn't all travel as a posse, if you've heard that word. We didn't travel as a group. We split.
Posse would be correct for a gang, right? For a criminal gang.
Let's drop the criminal. Okay. And let's talk more about the gang. A group of elite professionals, let's call them. So my team went out and we went individually so that we were able to meet as many people as quickly as possible. And I think it's crucially important that culture is at the heart of any business, quite frankly. But I mean, maybe more so in a non-profit. I don't know. But
what is culture?
Culture is the way people do things around here. So it's the attitude. It's what makes you tick. It is what defines this organization as being different from another organization, and it's something that I keep coming back to. So this wasn't a one-off piece. So this wasn't let's set our values and then actually they're cast in stone and then that's it. So on a weekly basis, I use a blog to communicate with the team, and I reuse examples from the team across the business where people have lived the values. Monthly, I do a vlog that goes across all my teams, And again, it is very much subliminally, I admit to that, from a marketing and comms perspective, it is subliminally reminding people that it is our values that unites us. And I also find it is from a performance point of view, it is integrated into our appraisal system. So therefore, people know that they are expected to be demonstrably living our values, and that includes me.
Can you measure all these things? Culture is such a fuzzy thing, or can be a fuzzy thing. How would you appraise somebody based on values? For instance, how do you know, on a scale from 1 to 10, how enterprising person X is?
That's a brilliant question. And I think that it's the dreaded interview question, isn't it, that you get asked when you go for a job. It's give me an example.
Measurement is a big thing, Charlie.
Yeah.
The reason why in business growth we only measure revenue and profit is because we don't know better. But these are silly numbers in a way, because they are only delivered to us by the accountants once the year is over. And of course, there's little steps in between where you can control things. But measuring things that actually are happening today, but will have a positive impact on the financial results of the future, I think that would be the thing. So that's why I'm asking, because measuring definitely is not only a big, big challenge in your business or in such a situation. So I'm interested to hear more.
Yeah, well, I can give you two examples. So in terms of our service delivery, we do use a recognized measurement system for outcomes, which is called the outcome star measurement. So when a service user, I mentioned Declan, or any of our service users come into our into Extern, we ask them to self-evaluate where they are over maybe 10 criteria. It depends on the service. So it may be self-esteem, it may be managing money, it may be what's important to them. And we get a snapshot of where they are on the outcome star. And then at the end of their journey, we ask them to reevaluate where they are. So we do have, for all of our services, we use consistently the outcome star measurement, which is a recognized tool for measuring outcomes. With regards to our staff, which was your original question, how we measure that is so through our appraisals and through our regular meetings, we ask them, and my team asked them, can you give me an example of a time when you were, that's what I mean about that interview question. That's the one we all get when we go for interviews for jobs, isn't it? Well, it is in the UK and Ireland anyway. It's can you give me an example of a time when you were leading or enterprising or ambitious or professional or working together? And we do regularly ask it, not in an interview format, but in a way of, that's really interesting and well done, and thank you for demonstrating. Thank you for that great idea that you came up with. And if it's a challenging conversation, could you try to work with other people in a more constructive way? So I'm not pretending that everybody in our organization is perfect. I'm not perfect, but because I'm always on a journey. Every day is a school day, is what we say at Extern. Every day is a day where you can learn something new. But we come back and embed our learning and hook it into our values.
Is there anything that comes to mind that you've learned yesterday?
What did I learn yesterday?
You don't need to answer that. It would just be fun if there was something, now that you mentioned that every day is a school day.
Yeah, I think I can give a brief example. It's as a leader, you can react or you can be proactive. And sometimes the business kind of sets up a thing in your head that, oh gosh, I need to respond to that immediately. I need to respond to that email immediately because I'm an ambitious person and I think that's important. And then I took a step back and thought, actually, no, that is something that on my agenda today is something that can wait, something that is less important. So I think we self-calibrate every day. I know I try to do that, and I try to get some time out and think about what is important and what my priorities are. So that's always it's a daily learning, I have to say.
Thank you for that. We will be talking about sales, marketing, and communication in a second. Before we do, Gustavo, I don't see the chat anymore. Is there anything? And would you please alert me if there was a question from the audience? There is none. So Charlie, how important, as a last big segment of business growth, how important is sales including marketing, including communication of any kind for your success and for your growth story?
It's really important, and I would describe that as being my relationship and our relationship as a team with our commissioners. So I've mentioned that many of our commissioners are government departments. So in Northern Ireland, we have 5 government departments who commission our services, and in the Republic of Ireland, we have a similar number of government departments who commission our services. But we also receive funding from Europe, from EU funds, particularly in the Republic of Ireland, and other trust and lottery type funding. So relationships and sales and marketing in that sense, and building trust and confidence with our commissioners is really important. In terms of the general public, we have a brilliant marketing and communications team, and they regularly post onto our website and Twitter and use social media, all the usual platforms, which I'll not list, but all the usual platforms to engage with our customers in the sense of our service users. So I see this is segmented into several areas. So there's customers and sales and marketing related to our commissioners, and then there's also how do we reach people? How do people know that we're there? And we're constantly looking at ways to promote. So for example, over COVID-19, we've had to transfer 60% of our services onto online platforms. So whereas pre-COVID, we would have been providing counselling services on a one-to-one, face-to-face basis for many of our service users. We've moved that, and our IT team have been brilliant at moving 60% of our services online. And that's actually something that's going to stay. So I think there's a great opportunity coming out of COVID. And I think
that goes back possibly to the product, though, or to the service.
Sure. But I also think it's linked to sales and marketing, because if people know that you're there for them and you're there in an agile, flexible way, it gives us new ways of promoting ourselves. So it gives us new ways to pop up on Instagram, for example, and say, hello, we're here. If you're feeling suicidal, we're here. And actually the numbers over COVID.
Is that the language that you use?
If you're feeling suicidal?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I think particularly coming out of COVID, we have seen, and during COVID, we have seen a huge increase in the number of people with mental health issues because of the incarceration of people into their homes, which for many people is difficult. So can you imagine a child who's been abused at home, being told they have to stay at home with parents who abuse them?
I can,
yeah.
I saw the writing on a wall here in my town, and anytime I pass by it, I think about that. Yeah. So somebody did a good job, kind of using a spray can to help me realize that that's a problem.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think it is sales and marketing is something you're never finished with. So it is finding new ways, being innovative, responding to need, and in the way that our service users, in terms of our customers, want us to respond. In terms of our commissioners, sales and marketing, we've got to market ourselves the way they want us. So government requires that it's typically a tendering process, and one success we've had as a result of sales and marketing at the start of this year was we were successful in achieving a 14 million contract for the extension of one of our services called a bail supervision scheme.
So when you talk about the revenue of 27 million pounds,
yes,
you're talking about last year?
I'm talking about last year, and yes, we've added
14 million that new deal that you got, that is kind of, that takes your revenue to where?
Well, it's spread over 7 years, so it's a 2 million. So it takes us to 29, approaching 30 million. But it is indicative of our team's passion and compassion and energy, and also sales and marketing to be able to be. How it links to sales and marketing is Extern is the only charity on the island of Ireland to be able to provide a bail supervision service, which means that we have cornered the market, and we have a service which diverts. So to be clear what a bail supervision service is, instead of a
You need
judge...
to explain that, Charlie. I think if I
Sure.
don't understand it, nobody else will. Because
Okay,
I already know you, not because I'm smarter than other people, but I already know you. We discussed a few things, but I really would appreciate if you could explain that a little more.
Sure, and it's absolutely my pleasure to do so, because it's a very impactful service. So if you imagine a young person in a courtroom with a judge, and the judge has the option, well, he or she as a judge only had the option to in a serious case to send the young person to a detention centre or to prison. That's just a polite word for prison, detention centre. So now, because of the bail supervision service, which we piloted and trialled in Dublin for 3 years, and we innovated and provided that service, we gave the judge another option, which was not to send the person to prison, the young person to prison, but to sentence them to extern. And that means that we as a team are able to work with that young people on why are they offending? What is leading them? And in many cases, it's either childhood trauma, it's either addictions to substance or gambling, it's some kind of mental health issue. There's always a reason, because we believe in people. We believe that people don't just act out for the sake of it. There's usually a very good reason. And is it not better, and this is the question that we put to the commissioners and why it's now been so successful and extended, is it not better to deal with the root causes of criminality within that young person, rather than incarcerating them and adding cost and adding further mental health trauma to that young person, when that money could be invested, a fraction of that money could be invested in purchasing an external service which intervenes and helps that young person to seriously address why they offend, not just the offending piece. Does that describe it in a
Thank you very much
in a way that's
yes,
understandable?
It does. Charlie, you also had a big moment, I believe, a big PR moment recently. That was when the royal family came to visit you. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure that Extern's the first charity on the island of Ireland to have had not one, but 2 visits from Kate and William, as I affectionately now call them, but the Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess, well, I'd like to think that, but the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, as they're officially known, came a year ago and canoed with us in Northern Ireland with some of our young people, and had a fantastic day talking and experiencing the external magic in Northern Ireland. And it was such a pleasure this year to welcome them to a service just outside Dublin, which is intervening with young people and families who are in serious need. And they played table tennis. They did some cooking with the young people, and they were very generous with their time. They spent a couple of hours with us in Dublin this year, and their interest, particularly in mental health and the experiences of the young people, was very, very heartwarming to see their interest, and that they came back to Extern for us was a huge affirmation that we believe that as a team we are making a difference to young people's lives. What does that do with you
as a team? You mentioned it and you said it's an affirmation. What does it do internally? That kind of recognition, you know?
It creates a huge energy within inside. It's sort of a back of the neck standing hair moment, I would describe it. When you are seeing, actually, if you can stop and think as it's happening, gosh, these are the future king and queen of the United Kingdom, possibly. Well, let's not get into that debate, but certainly of England anyway. And they have come to see our young people, and they've chosen to spend time with our young people. What is hugely important about that is that it's not they're coming to see us and shake our hands, which actually wouldn't have been allowed in COVID anyway. It's that they're coming to spend time with young people. It's more what it does for the young people and how we've been able to follow up with the young people to say, do they really care about you? You really matter. as a young person, you really matter. And that's what's important to us, that the royal family are saying, along with us as Extern, you really matter.
There are business propositions involved on both sides. Of course, it's important for you to be seen as an organization. It's also important for them because it's about kids and it helps them and how they are seen in the public. So everybody got something out of that, I would say.
For sure, and to be associated, for them, hopefully, to be associated with the largest leading social justice charity on the island of Ireland is hopefully something that they see as important. The mental health issue is top of the agenda, and I'm delighted that they are such great ambassadors for mental health and champions of mental health.
If I'm hearing that from you, Charlie, I would guess that many other organizations are trying to get the Duke and the Duchess, you say, right?
Duchess,
I'm sorry
yes,
about that.
yes.
Duchess
No problem.
Cambridge
No problem.
it is. Am I correct about that as well?
That's correct. You're absolutely spot on.
So everybody wants to kind of work with them, right?
Yes.
How did you do it that they wanted to come and visit you the first time especially?
The first time especially, they heard about us. So, and this is where it comes back to the sales and marketing piece around, we were known. We had got to a size and a scale where people had heard about us, and it had reached Kensington Palace, which is huge. So they approached us and said, "Is it okay if we come and spend some time with our young people, with Extern's young people?" So I think that's affirmation again for the work that the sales and marketing team have done.
You were found by them.
Yes.
That means you stood out before that happened. And then those people who actually get requests, most probably by the second, they reached or had their team reach out to you, and they wanted to be close to your organization. And of course, I wasn't there, but the royal family, they do their due diligence before they reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and to experience the moment, the young people's moment when the royal helicopter landed on one of our sites in Northern Ireland, as it was a year ago, and for them to be so generous with their time and getting down and dirty, as we would say, in the canoes and chatting, playing, doing archery, doing assault courses with the young people was just hugely momentous and affirming for those young people that they were interested in them. So it will live long in the memories. And our young people wrote to the royal family after both of the visits and said what it meant to them, because it is what we would say a red letter day, a day that our young people can look back and say, actually, do you know what? I am actually important.
Yeah. Good. That's. I think it's a very interesting example of what you can achieve, or how your achievement can be amplified.
Yes, indeed, and it's a huge, again, linked to sales and marketing, because you will know that our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, website went viral on both days when the royal family visited us. So that again, success breeds success.
Absolutely. And around the same time, you also gave an interview to the BBC, which is probably the organization, the media organization that you want to talk to in your situation. Is that correct?
Yes, the BBC and RTE covered the events, and it's again, it's not about me. It's about putting forward what we do as a team for Extern. I'm the leader. I'm privileged and proud to be the leader of an excellent team.
Fantastic. So we talked about the product or the services, as you called them. We talked about the people, and we talked about the sales and marketing aspect of it all. Is there an important pillar of your business growth story that we didn't touch on so far?
I think I just would want to underscore the flexibility and agility, which is we've probably covered that under the service model. But I think I would really underscore for your listeners that as an important principle of business growth, if you say this is what we offer and we're actually not going to change what we offer, then you won't grow. So that the responsiveness, the flexibility, the agility within that, which hopefully has come across in what I've said, would be something I would really want to underscore. Because if you're not responsive, if you're not able to be agile, then your business won't grow, quite simply.
Great. We have maybe 7 more minutes, and I know you have a very busy day and also a very important meeting coming up. Is there, just as I do have a few last questions. Is
Sure.
there a driver of business growth that people talk about all the time, but you don't think it's that important?
I think, well, you might expect me to say this because I'm a not-for-profit organization. So I think it's less important for us for profit. So what's important for Extern is that we cover our costs, or as we would describe it, full cost recovery. So it's making sure that all of the overheads are covered in how we tender for our business. But for us, I turn the dial down. It's not that we don't want to make a profit, don't get me wrong, but it's less important in a not-for-profit organization. So things like fixed assets and buildings are less important to us than the flexibility to be able to respond to needs. So interestingly, again, coming out of COVID, we've reevaluated the need for, do we really need all these buildings? Because actually what we've learned is that we can be more flexible. We can offer services, 60% of our services online. So it's not that it's not important, but as a not-for-profit organization, profit and fixed assets would be words that I'm kind of not really that interested in.
And is there anything that you had as an organization, or you personally, that you had to sacrifice for that growth?
Sacrifice is an interesting word, because I think I would say time and energy it has been a pleasure to donate, shall we say, into the organization. But yes, I mean, personally, there's been a personal cost. I mean, I spent half of my life in Dublin and half of my life in Belfast, usually having the wrong piece of personal clothing in the wrong place and things like that. So traveling up and down is quite a challenge. But I think as an organization, we have rallied around I mean, it's been a huge growth story, and it doesn't come without sacrifice. It doesn't come without time, energy, commitment by everybody, our board, our staff, all of us pulling together. But the drawing thing for us, the tangible, is changing people's lives. It's worth it.
Yeah, I believe you, because I also know you, and I think that you're pretty happy with what happens at Extern.
Absolutely, it is a pleasure to be a leader of an organisation. We are the fastest growing charity on the island of Ireland, and that again is a reflection. It's a two-sided coin. It's as I said at the very start, it shows that society is in such great need and has so many mental health issues, and there's something wrong with society, isn't there? That our services are growing. But on the flip side of that is we're growing because we are agile, because we are responsive, and it's a pleasure for us to be there, to be able to take on vulnerable, as we would say, vulnerable service users, and meet them at the point of their need.
And I mean, you're also doing an important job in the name of those people who need your services, even before you are able to deliver the services, because first you need to talk to the people who in the end will pay for you delivering the services. So there's sales and marketing again. You kind of need to see the need, then you need to talk to the people who actually need to finance it, and then, and only then, can you really start serving those people who have that specific need.
And you raise a very important point there, Dave, that influencing government and influencing commissioners to look at things differently is a very important part of what we do. So our business development team do engage with our ministers from both jurisdictions in the Republic of Ireland and in the north of Ireland, and with people who commission our services to say, hey, would it not be better? Don't spend your money on this. Spend your money on earlier intervention. And that's a journey. A minister's not just going to suddenly decide to change things. That is a journey. And the bail supervision scheme that I mentioned earlier is a really good example of that, where we were able to pilot a scheme for 3 years and have it evaluated externally, and then government be, okay, we get it. We're saving money, good for us. You're making a huge impact for young people, good for them. And therefore, okay, we'll now, instead of it just being Dublin, we'll move to Cork and Limerick and other cities with this model, which has been proven, tried and tested. So influencing, as you say, Dave, is influencing for our service users, advocacy, as we would call it, for our vulnerable service users who can't speak up for themselves.
Yeah. Wonderful. A few last ones. We have 3 more minutes, maybe. Gustavo, is there a question by the audience? There is none. So
okay.
Do you have, or is there a piece of advice that you got regarding business growth, which you really think that we all should hear?
I read, when I get some time, I read, and I was interested, recently I read Sir Richard Branson's story of how he grew his business and diversified his business. And I was really struck by the story that he told very briefly about how he developed Virgin Atlantic and how he developed the airline business for Virgin. And that was, he was at an airport, he was stranded, and he saw a group of people that were also stranded because there was technical breakdowns.
And he wanted to meet a girl.
And he wanted to, sorry?
He was headed towards a date, like he had a date, right? And couldn't fly. That's how I heard the story.
That's an interesting, that is certainly true. And how I received that story is interesting as well, but he also did it not just for himself. There was an airport full of people who couldn't get home, and so he then chartered an aircraft. So my interpretation of that is he responded to need. So
he responded to need, and he sold before he created the product. Because first he went around and saw whether there was enough interest and people and willingness of the people to pay for it, and only then he chartered that machine.
Absolutely,
I think it's fantastic. I mean, that was at the time when nobody talked about agile and innovation or any kind of very modern methods. He just did exactly that. Such a long time ago. Already.
Yeah, and I think that's an inspiring message, isn't it? It's not just a romantic story about him wanting to meet a girl, although that is interesting, isn't it? Love conquers all, maybe. Is that the message? I don't know. I think for me, the message is that, let's respond to need and have an outside the box thinking moment where, we're inspired to things. Can we respond to need? Is there a need out there that we're not that we could respond to? That's a challenge I would ask all of your listeners to think about. Is there something in your business that you could do to respond to a need that is out there that nobody's meeting?
Great. And what is the title of the book? What is the title of the book? Do you remember that?
You're going to challenge me now.
His biography,
It's his biography. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
It was
published, I think, last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. So that's that. I have learned from you that culture is so important because people are so important, and if they work the same way and if they have a mindset kind of their own as a group, that really helps to get things done the right way. And that's one of the precious things that I've heard and learned from you today, Charlie. Is there anything else that you would like to say? Any last words to the audience?
No, I think it's thank you for listening, and I hope the Extern story has inspired your listeners to think about a charity as a business, because I think more and more not-for-profits are regarding their organisation as a business, and I think the lessons from the charitable sector are equally applicable to private business, and so let's move on together and never be afraid to try something new.
And it certainly has inspired me. Thank you very much for that.
It's been a pleasure to be on the Boom Show, Dave. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
To my audience here, or our audience, thank you very much for spending the time. Come back soon. We do have a page now. It's boom.ceo/boomshow, and you can find much of the information and also the recordings of the old episodes there. I'm looking forward to seeing you here again. Everybody, including Charlie and Extern, I wish you all success, but also love and joy. Enjoy the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.